Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another analysis series. We do Genshin and we do Honkai, and now we're going to start doing Honkai Star Rail. Honkai Star Rail is launching sometime soon, and we want to get in early and look at the characters, analyze them, and essentially me give you guys the know-how of how to use these characters and what are going to be some really good ways to build them and use them, and what their general role in your gameplay kind of loop will be. And so we're going to go through this, go through all the characters, starting off with all the 4 stars, and then move on to the 5 stars a bit later on in essentially the series of episodes and videos. But there's one thing we have to outline before we actually get to analyzing them, is the destruction stuff that we see on the screen here, or the paths, if you will. Now, Honkai Star Rail has a thing called paths, which is, I think, a little bit more easily simplified as roles, or the role that they will play in your team. And currently, there are 7 roles, with more to be added in the future, apparently. But simply put, these are what they will be doing on your team. Destruction is a general DPS. General DPS means consisting of both single target and AoE. Then you have Hunt, which is single target. Erudition, multi-target. Harmony, offensive/utility support. Nihility, debuffer. Preservation, defensive and /tank. And then Abundance is your healer. Now, I'm only going to outline this in this video because it's the start of the whole series, and knowing what this means is very important because I'm going to be referencing their role a lot, essentially. Understanding the elements is not important, as it's very bog standard. It's just essentially you want to use your element against an opponent that is weak to your element. That's it. But the role stuff / paths are a lot more important to understand. Because when we go over to Arlan, we'll notice that he's a destruction, and what does that mean? Well, he's a general DPS, which means he consists of both AoE and single target, essentially, attacks. So now that we've outlined that little thing, let us get into talking about Arlan. We're going to go through his whole kit, starting off with his basic attack. Just attack a target, single target. Hit a single enemy. Simply put. It's going to essentially be the reason you just restore energy to the character, so then you can cast his skill, which is slightly more important. You consume 15% of your max HP to deal damage equal to a certain percentage of lightning damage of Arlan's attack to a single enemy, and this cannot be used if Arlan's HP is too low. What does it mean by too low? If you're at 15%, you can't use it. Not yet, at least. No, I say not yet because Constellation / Eidolon will help you in the future with that. But you consume 15% HP to deal lightning damage to an enemy, this percentage of your attack. Very simple, to be quite frank, and very high percentage. 160 baseline, because these numbers that we see here, 160, 320, and 352, are based on levels 1, 10, and 12, which is quite good. But I also should preface, this is pridewin.gg, this website, a very good and handy website, and if you guys want the on-hand information, go to pridewin.gg. They cover a lot of games, and their coverage of Honkai Star Rail is really good. But that's his skill. It's essentially like a Hu Tao from Genshin Impact. You consume some of your HP to deal a massive amount of damage. His ultimate, though, is the part that I think is the best part of his kit. Deal lightning damage equal to a certain percentage of Arlan's attack to a single enemy, and lightning damage equal to a certain percentage of Arlan's attack to any adjacent enemies. Now, adjacent, next to, essentially hit a middle target, it'll hit the guys beside him. Very good. It's a pretty good splash, and the damage values are very good, and this can be further enhanced with certain Eidolons, which we'll get into just a moment. But baseline, this character being a 4-star, he's really good at just everything, and this is going to be a little point that I'm going to make in this video, is that I think destruction characters are going to be characters that we can easily describe as just above mid. I don't believe destruction characters are going to be anywhere near the best in the game, but they are going to be super reliable characters to have on your team no matter what. As you can imagine, having both single target and AoE is a very useful thing to have in this game. But that's besides the point, let's keep moving. Pain and Anger increases Arlan's damage for every % of HP below his max HP, up to a max of these percentages at different levels. So essentially this is his talent. It's a passive talent, and you'll get more damage the lower your HP is, to a pretty chunky bonus at max level, which is 88%. Very good, by the way, very good. And then his technique, to quickly explain techniques, is essentially a pre-combat thing that you do to then enter combat and have this effect trigger. You can only do this once per combat, obviously, and this immediately attacks the enemy after entering a battle, deals lightning damage equal to 80% of Arlan's attack to all enemies. A very good one. You just deal a bunch of damage to the enemies, and if you know that you're going to counter them, you can get a pretty chunky head start on breaking their weakness or something like that. So this is a very good thing. And obviously every character has a different technique, so maybe you're not going to be using Arlan's all the time, but Arlan's is not a bad one to use if you're just looking for a quick kill. Now that's the active stuff about the character, but what about the a bit more passive things? What about the traces? Now, traces simplified is essentially small passives that you level up and unlock, and they give you small bonuses passively. Pure passives, these are not active things. Now the first one is Revival. Now I'll put this drop down menu here just to show you the stats that you get alongside it, or little things, little bonuses that you get, but they're not super important. But first one, Revival. When Arlan's HP is 30% of his max or lower, him defeating an enemy will immediately restore his HP by the value of 20% of max HP. You just kill an enemy and you heal by 20% if you're below 30 to a maximum of 50, obviously. It's pretty useful, just a little bit of a safety mechanic if you get too low and you can get a quick kill. Pretty alright. Perseverance is Arlan's dot resistance is increased by 50%. This one's actually, like, weirdly good. The reason I say weirdly good is because, well, Arlan's going to be at low HP all the time, right? He's going to be below 50% most of the time in your battle. So having dot resistance is really good, so if the enemy does dot you, well, you're not just going to get chunked by the dot for a very large percentage of your HP, so having dot resistance is pretty good. And then upon entering battle, if Arlan's HP is at 50% of his max HP or lower, he gains a barrier that nullifies the next incoming attack. This one, again, furthermore, if you're chaining battles a lot, this one's pretty handy as well. You're just going to be able to survive subsequent battles. This will always trigger at the start of the battle if his HP is at 50% or lower. So essentially, if the enemy has higher speed than you, you'll be able to not die instantly because, well, you'll have a shield. And so, yeah, it's pretty handy. All of this stuff is very handy and it plays to his character. Now, that is everything of the baseline of the character. And one thing I will say is that you have to utilize his whole kit. You have to utilize everything in his kit. He's not one of these characters where you'll just be able to, write off one part of his kit and just kind of be like, nah, I don't want to use that. Nah, I don't like that part. You'll have to pretty much use up all of his kit. You'll have to use his skill to get yourself a lower, or rather, you'll have to use his basic attack to give yourself enough energy to use his skill. And then you'll have to use his skill to lower your HP and deal damage, and then to trigger the effect of his talent, getting more damage the lower you are. And then once you have enough energy, you'll have to use his ultimate to deal a massive amount of damage to a lot of enemies. And obviously everything here coincides with helping you achieve that surviving, resisting, and also winning, obviously. But obviously the character doesn't stop there. He has Eidolons. Eidolons are constellations from Genshin Impact, or if you want to look at them, they can be like start rating up your character in Honkai and other games like that. Simply put, you have to get a duplicate of the character to trigger these, so gotcha. It is what it is. But Arlan's Eidolons. Simply put, I would say he doesn't have super high value Eidolons until the very last one, but we'll get there in just a moment. His first one is Arlan's skill can be used so long as his current HP percentage is above or equal to 5%. Essentially changing this this skill cannot be used if Arlan's HP is too low. He can use it between 5 and 15. If you don't have this Eidolon, he'll only be able to use it at 16. Once it's 15, you can't. His Eidolon changes that to between 5 and 15 being accessible for usage. Is this super useful? Not really. Not really that useful. You're just going to be killing yourself a lot quicker. This does become a little bit more useful if you have a future Eidolon, which we'll get into in just a second. But baseline, Eidolon 1, not that great. Eidolon 2, skill damage increases by 10%, flat increase. And the useful part of this is when using your skill, you dispel a debuff inflicted on Arlan. Now, the reason this is really good, debuff cleansing. Debuff cleansing is a really important thing in a lot of games, as well as just getting a little bit of a bonus on skill damage. It's all around pretty useful. Very nice. Eidolon 3, your skill will be leveled up by +2 and your basic attack will be leveled up by +1. Simply put, a small bonus to your base damage. Nothing too crazy. Eidolon 4 is the one that I was referencing when we were talking about Eidolon 1. Eidolon 4 is essentially when you would die with Arlan, you won't. It's a revive. So when you would be incapped, you will restore to 25% of his max HP, and it can only happen once per battle. Now, it's pretty handy, but it's all just a revive. Nothing, no damage boosting, no extras, no bonuses, it's just a revive. So, but it's fine, it's fine. It kind of works together with his Eidolon 1 and, Eidolon 4 work together. So it's a nice synergy, but it's no massive bonus. But I guess his base damage is pretty good as it is, so whatever. Eidolon 5, my apologies, is ultimate level up +2, as well as talent level up +2. essentially leveling up your talents to another level and getting more base damage. And then finally, Eidolon 6, the most important one for him, and I think one that would actually make him a good unit. Prior to Eidolon 6, I would classify him as just above average. He's just above average, but with Eidolon 6, I would classify him as a pretty good unit to take into certain situations. So when Arlan's HP is lower than 50% of his max, increases his ultimate damage by 20%, and the damage multiplier on the adjacent targets increases to that of the target enemy. What does that mean? Well, at 50% or lower, you get 20% damage bonus to your ultimate. Simply a flat 20% increase. But that last part is very crucial in my honest opinion. Essentially, it makes this adjacent damage that would be these numbers here, that happens to the splash damage essentially. So you have your main target in the middle. The damage that would happen to the side characters is without Constellation 6 or Eidolon 6, it's this value. But with Eidolon 6, it turns into these values. Essentially increasing your damage by a metric shit ton. All around, that is. This transforms him into a pretty good damage dealer and clearer. Will he be the best? Obviously not. The AoE like DPS and the single target DPS will do their jobs a lot better. But for a character to be able to, level him up to such a high degree is actually really fucking good. So his Eidolon 6 is his strongest one, as for every character, their Eidolon 6 is obviously going to be their strongest one. Much like in Genshin, every character's C6 is always their strongest one. But it's nice to know that it is pretty good. And also, he's a 4-star character. Also, you get him for free. So you'll most likely get Arlan at E6 if you do roll at the launch of the game. You'll get this character most likely because, well, the game is launching, a lot of free stuff, a lot of characters being given out in the story, a lot of RNG, so you probably get him there. But don't be despaired if you don't. E2 is a really good one to stop at. And this is where I would recommend you stop if you are trying to invest in the character or something along those lines. If you are in a weird world where you are rolling for this character specifically, which I don't recommend ever, E2 is a pretty good one. Obviously, getting the skill level ups is very useful, very, very useful. Maybe going into E3 would be handy, but E2 mainly because of the dispel. You want to be able to dispel the effects on your character. If your character's inflicted with bleed, dispel the effect. If your character's inflicted with slow, dispel the effect. And getting rid of these effects so you don't get hindered in combat is going to be very crucial in just, well, having fun first and foremost, but also winning, you know what I mean? So that's the character baseline, and also with Eidolons. He's a pretty good unit. Obviously, like I said, without E6, I would put him pretty mid, pretty above mid, slightly bit above mid. But with E6, he's pretty good in my opinion. But that's not where building the characters stops. We have the second thing, which is light cones. Now, light cones, for those who don't know exactly how it works, they are just your weapons. That's the simplest way that I'm going to word it. I'm not going to try to do any kind of other analogy. They are just the weapon that you'll equip on the character, and they'll fight with it, or that is going to be their weapon-esque system. And obviously there are many tiers to it. You have 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. 3 stars, at the start of the game, you can worry about the 3 stars. And at the start of the game, the 3 stars will be important because you won't have a lot of light cones. And so, Collapsing Sky is his best one out of the 3 stars. It just gives you basic attack and skill damage. So use this if you have absolutely nothing else. But if you do have something else, out of the 4-star variant, every single one is good except for Wolf Walk Time. Wolf Walk Time doesn't really do much except give you a small damage bonus and bleed dependency. I wouldn't recommend going for it as you need bleed dependency. That's just kind of not something I would ever recommend. But the other ones essentially increase your damage by a flat percentage and then either restore HP, like Nowhere to Run, it'll give you a bit more survivability, as well as a chunky damage bonus. Arlan's signature one will increase his damage flat by a certain percentage, and then further increase his damage the lower his HP is in comparison to the enemies. And then the Moles Welcome You will increase your damage the more you do your actual abilities. So after casting a skill, a basic attack, or an ultimate, you'll get a stack of a damage increase. Very good. Basically, simply put, everything but Wolf Walk Time will be a bonus to Arlan. Now, obviously, I'd always infinitely recommend just running his signature, and you can tell it's his signature by the picture of him in the actual, light cone. So, obviously, just run his signature if you want the best world in life, because then once you get these other characters, you want to equip their signatures. So, just get Arlan's signature if you can. But if you're an Arlan fanboy, if you're a die-hard Arlan player, if you love this guy to death, if you think he's the best character in the world, and if you want to make this character the strongest, obviously you're going to run the best 5-star one, which obviously both of these are going to be very good. Both of them are extremely good when, you know, you're building a character. 5 stars are the best things in the game. It's why they're gold. So, a fall on the Aeon, or on the fall of an Aeon rather, whenever you attack, you get a stack of this percentage up to 4 stacks, so you can get a total of 32% just from having one copy of it, which I'll explain in just a moment here at the end. And then when you inflict a weakness break, you get more damage bonus for the next 2 turns, so universally kind of a good one. That's very handy. And then something inseparable is one that's more specific for this lady here, but it is also very useful for Arlan, so it increases your damage by a base percent. I say damage, I mean attack, obviously, but it increases your attack by a base percentage. But then whenever the wearer defeats an enemy or is hit, immediately restore some HP of the wearer's attack. So a bit of leech, if you will. Very nice. And at the same time, the wearer's damage increases by 20 and so on and so forth % until the end of their next turn. So essentially, you have a base increase in damage, and then you attack and you get a bigger increase, and you attack and you get a bigger increase, and so on and so forth. It's kind of a continuous thing, but obviously you can only stack once and cannot trigger more than 1 time per turn. So it's kind of like a turn-by-turn thing you have to use. And so, in an ideal world, the best one for you is going to be one of these 2 5-star ones, but I'm still going to recommend, hand on heart, a Secret Vow, Arlan's signature one. Just slap that on him, it'll be fine. He's not meant to be the main character of the game. He's obviously far from it. Just slap this one on, and that's that. But halfway through talking about this section, I did forget to mention one thing that I think is extremely important, and it's obviously, how do you get the increase of these levels, and what does the destruction roll mean? Well, the increase of these levels means just getting a duplicate of the light cone. Simply get a duplicate, then you refine it, essentially. It's like a level up system, or tier up system for the weapons. Genshin has this, other games have this, it's quite common. But the destruction thing is a lot more important. Characters of a specific path can only use light cones of that same exact path. So what you'll see here is that all of these are destruction because I've sorted them by destruction. So Arlan can only use destruction ones. And when I say only, it's recommended. What you'll experience if you don't use the correct path is that you won't be able to trigger these effects. So let's say I change it to abundance, or rather erudition, because that's a DPS one. If you use an erudition light cone on Arlan, you will not be triggering these effects. You will get the base stat bonus from the light cone, but you will not be getting the actual ability. So it's heavily encouraged to use anything of the same path, and more so the signature weapon or signature light cone of that character. And I just thought I'd preface or put that at the end because I forgot to put it at the start. But that's that. That's a very important thing. Always use the same path light cone as the character. Very important. And there's one more section of this, and it's the relic sets. Relic sets are your artifacts from Genshin, or your stigmas from Honkai Impact. Kind of not really stigmas. It's a bit more than stigmas. But there is stigma sets, essentially. And there are a lot of these, a lot of different ones for different playstyles, but I'm just going to give you the 2 best that I would recommend. The ones that sound the best for the character, and the one that will give you the most value for investment. And essentially, it's going to be the Band of Sizzling Thunder, which 2 set will give you 10% lightning damage, and then the 4 set will be whenever the wearer uses a skill, increase their attack by 25 for 1 turn. The reason I recommend that is because universally good, lightning damage and 25% attack. But there are 6 artifacts, so that means you can get 2 sets and 1 4 set, and so that's the 2 set, 4 set. What's the second 2 set, you may ask? Well, Arlan is a destruction character, and so you want damage. And the one that I would recommend is actually the Space Sealing Station. This one, all around, is pretty good. This is going to give you the most damage for your buck, and it's going to also encourage speed investment. So, the 2 set increases the wearer's attack by a flat 12, which is handy, and then when the wearer's speed reaches 120 or higher, the wearer's attack increases by another 12. The reason this one is recommended is because, well, that's 24% attack increase in total if you reach 120, and it also incentivizes a speed build on the character, which you can get through the substats, obviously. And a speed build means that you go, your turn happens faster, or your characters go first more often. It's a very handy thing to have, and I'd recommend this one. There are obviously other good sets like Inert Salsoto, Musketeer of the Wild Wheat, If anything, you can even go for Sprightly Von Whack. There are a bunch of other ones that you can go for, but I'd recommend these ones simply just because they're the easiest ones to probably get, as well as just universally being easy to understand and giving the character the highest amount of value. From what I can tell, obviously I haven't played the game, but from my perspective of having played Genshin and Honkai for the past, 2 years and Honkai for the past 8 months, I'm just going to use my educated guess and say that these are probably going to be the best for Arlan. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the first character that we've covered. We've covered Arlan and his basic stuff for the most part. He's pretty fucking good. For a character that you're going to get for free, you get him through the story from my understanding, as well as if you play at the launch of the game, you're going to be able to get a fair few copies of this character with all of the giveaways and all of the free things that they are giving. And so it seems like a pretty good character to get for free. Obviously, there's going to be better. Obviously, he's just a 4-star, and there's going to be better options in the 5-star category. But for the 4-star that he is, Arlan is a pretty good character. So that is that. If you enjoyed, like the video, and if this is helpful, also like and subscribe to the channel. And if there are any critiques about me covering these characters, by all means, please leave them in the comment section. I haven't played the game myself, so I don't know any of the nuances with the game, any of the very, specific things. So by all means, please educate me in the comments so I can learn and become better. But thank you again for supporting the channel. Catch you guys in the next video, and stay safe. Peace out.